Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another virtual edition of Mic'd Up Sports, the show that goes in depth with the people who build our sports community. And joining me is a recent commit to the North Dakota School of Science, NDSCS for short, Ivane Tensaie, who already is a trailblazer for Concordia Academy girls basketball. Last season, she set the all-time scoring record, and hopefully she'll have a chance to add to that record this winter if we are able to have winter sports. But we're excited to have Ivane back on. She was part of our panel in the summer, but now we get to learn a little bit more about her sports background. Ivane, thanks for coming on. And if you don't mind, what has the emotion, the reaction, what is the mood like since you announced that you were going to play at NDSCS?
Yeah, thanks for having me on this. It's been really great so far. I mean, there's been a lot of support from, people closest to me or just like people around school and on Instagram, when I announced it. I'm really happy with it. It's been great feedback and I'm really excited to get down there next year and make the most of my opportunity. So
Now, I know if your Instagram and social media accounts are any indication, you were taking a few looks, a few visits to some Division II schools, but you decided to take the junior college route. So what led you to pursue that option?
yeah, so I really liked all the D2s I visited. I thought they were great schools and I could have fit really well in their systems. But ultimately, like my dream has always been to play at the Division 1 level. And I just felt, talking to Coach Jacobson at NDSCS, like that they saw my potential and saw, you know, um, that I could make that dream a reality. So I think them giving me the opportunity to come there and play for a year or two, get more exposure, and then hopefully transfer to a D1, I thought that was the best option for me. So.
And just in case there are any NDSCS fans watching, I think I should have said at the start of the broadcast, North Dakota State College of Science, not School of Science. So
Yeah.
don't come after me, North Dakotans. uh, so, Ivane, I was wondering, were you getting any Division I looks, or were you getting any that didn't fit with what you wanted to do? Or just take us through the process as you were making your way through the field of college selections.
Yeah. So I had been talking to a few D1s like throughout the spring and over the summer. But none had like offered me or, it was just like talking and just like some interest back and forth. Um, so like I mean, I never had an offer really. So I mean that wasn't really the route for like right now. So the hope is to in the future get those offers and then hopefully transfer to a D1.
Well, I know quite a few folks who took that route, the junior college route, and then found a home at a Division I school. So, you could be the next in line. One person comes to mind,
Yeah.
Olivia Antilla, who played at Anoka Ramsey after starting at a D2 school, and then she ended up going Division I to finish her career at Florida A&M. And your old conference rival NJ is doing the same thing, and she's already getting some Division I offers. So I don't know what's in the water with her, but I have a
Yeah.
feeling she's going places, and you're going places too with what you've been able to accomplish at Concordia Academy. So, Ivane, do you recall the first moment when you got interested in the sport of basketball?
Yes. So that was like probably around when I was like 7 years old. I was actually in gymnastics from like 4 years old to 7 years old, and I had to quit for certain reasons. And so I still wanted to be like involved in sports. I still wanted to play. And my older brother, his name is Roby. He was really into basketball. He loves it so much, and I like always see him playing out in the front yard. And I was like, you know what? Like I'm just gonna go like join him. And I started playing like every day, and I just like began to love it. So that's where it all kind of started for me.
I remember meeting Roby for the first time when I covered an AAU event, I think the last one of the season, and he recognized me. And sometimes you forget that some, even the locals will watch your games. So
Yeah.
whenever people recognize me, it's like, oh yeah. But that's interesting. You started in gymnastics and made the switch. So what did your brother think when you said, or when you decided that you were going to take up the sport that he was playing?
I mean, he was excited. I mean, like, who wouldn't want like their sibling to come out and like, play with them and, just enjoy the sport. Yeah, like I actually asked him to like start, like training me and start like getting me to be a better basketball player because I wanted to go far with it from a young age. So yeah, he kind of like became my coach in that way for the first few years, which was kind of cool. So
What I want to know is, did you ever try recruiting him into gymnastics?
not quite. I don't think he would have gone for that one.
And then on a related note, as the two of you developed your skills, who would come out on top if the two of you went one on one? I'm guessing that's happened more than a few times.
Yeah, when I was younger, he'd definitely come out on top, but it might be a different story now. So I don't know. He'll probably have a different answer for you, but you know,
So it's been a while since you last played against each other?
it has been a while. I mean, he's been dealing with a few injuries and stuff as of late. So, I mean, we'll see though.
Okay, so you got to give him time to get healthy because that
Right.
wouldn't be a fair fight. And knowing you, it's like you want to, if you're going to beat him, you want to beat him at the top of his game.
Right. Exactly.
Over time, once you made the switch at 7 years old, what did you enjoy most about the sport of basketball?
Wow, that's a tough question. I mean, all of it really, but mostly like I feel like there's a different like bond you build with basketball, like just in terms of like, your teammates or even just like being with my brother, there was a different like bond that was created and like playing the sport together. So I think that's what I enjoy most about it. But I mean, now that I'm like older, I think I enjoy like the strategy of the game even more now and just like the IQ side of it. So, yeah.
And something I learned about you is I started covering Concordia games, on your social media pages. You make this pretty clear. You have the Ethiopian flag on your Twitter and Instagram accounts. And I know, especially around here, you don't get a lot of athletes with East African lineage. And I don't know if you think about this consciously, but with what you've been able to do, and considering your family history, where you came from, who you are, what does that mean for you? Why do you put the Ethiopian flag on your social media?
Yeah. I mean, I guess like from a young age, like my parents are immigrants from Ethiopia, so it was like always just built into like the fabric of who I am. Like, I mean, my culture has always been like at the forefront of like who I am, going to like Ethiopian church on Sundays, you know, having these family gatherings and stuff. So like it's always been very big part of my life and something I'm very proud of. You don't see a lot of like Ethiopian basketball players out there, so I'm like happy to be one to like kind of set the example and, be someone that like people can look up to in that way. So I think that's kind of cool. It's just like it's just really built into, you know, our family and just like that's just part of who I am. So
And I'm curious, well, before I ask my next question, we do have one congratulations you're headed your way, Yvonne, from an old friend of mine who happens to coach the Cretan Durham Hall girls basketball team these days. So I think there's still folks out
yeah.
there who are excited to see you play at that next level. But I'm wondering, I know you don't have the following, well, most of us don't, of Paige Beckers or Jalen Suggs, for example, but have you received any support or messages from folks who maybe share your background, share your lineage, and they see what you've been able to do at Concordia Academy? And as you said, kind of see that beacon, see that model of inspiration?
Yeah, definitely. I've had a lot of um people reaching out like these past few days and being very supportive. Just like people who I like maybe haven't seen in a really long time, like in the Ethiopian community, and just reaching out, be like, hey, I'm proud of you. Like, I know you're gonna do great things in the future. So, it's been really great to see that, and I mean, it gives me a lot of hope for the future that I know I got people who have my back. So it's very much appreciated.
And what kind of impact do you think that has had with your teammates, the people you've been in touch with over the years? Because we all know you as a great basketball player. I remember having your former head coach Matt Pryor on my show last year, and he said if I knew better, I would have made Ivane a captain. How do you think your experience and what you've been able to do? How do you think that has helped to enrich others in terms of your culture?
Yeah, I mean, I wanna be able to inspire people in like anything I do. So, I mean, just having um just having people that like look up to me, like it motivates me to do better too, so that I can set a better example for them and, hopefully inspire them to do greater things than I am in the future. So, I mean, it's really nice because I have that extra motivation as well that keeps me going. So,
And for those who aren't familiar, what are some aspects of the Ethiopian culture that you've learned, that you've embraced, that says something, that would say something to others about what it stands for? What are some of the things that you've been able to learn and embrace that others don't necessarily know about if they're not familiar with it?
yeah, I think family is a huge aspect of our culture. Like, I mean, just that bond is like completely unbreakable. Like, I'm very close with a lot of my cousins as well. So like we just have that, connection and like an attitude that, is like fearless, and like you have like a never give up type of mentality that's just like built into like our culture. Um so I'm very proud of that. Yeah, it's just very much a tight bond that like, is built on fearlessness and like trusting God and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And on the subject of representation, how important do you feel that is at Concordia Academy, being one of the athletes of color for girls basketball? I don't know if you take part in any other sports, but um, serving as that presence of not just a great basketball player, but also a model for other athletes of color, whether they come from Ethiopia or other parts of the world. How do you think your representation matters in that context?
Yeah, I think it's super important because I didn't really have that for myself growing up. Like, I had my brothers to look up to, but like no like girls I could really look up to in that aspect because everybody, especially where I'm from, looks a lot different than I do. So, just knowing that I could be that for someone else, I think is really cool. And I want to be that person for other people because that's not necessarily what I had for myself. And just to think of like the steps that someone else could take to even go further than I did, just having that representation is pretty cool. So yeah.
What were some of the challenges growing up, since you mentioned how you didn't have a lot of representation or a lot of people that looked like you to go to as you were making your way through school and through life here in the Twin Cities?
What was the question? Sorry.
Just what are some of the challenges where
Yeah.
you're making your way through school, because you said there weren't a lot of people who look like you,
Yeah.
so you're that, I don't want to say isolated, that's not the right word, but you're one of those
Right.
instances where, or reminders that, hey, folks like yourself can ball, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So I think one of the challenges is just, I mean, like I said, like not having that person to look up to. So it's kind of like you got to pave your own way for yourself. Um, so like it does feel kind of like isolated, but like, I don't know if that's quite the word for it, but I mean just breaking that like barrier and paving that path for yourself and like for the future, I think that's definitely one of the main challenges. So,
So, how gratifying is it to be one of those women who can break down barriers? Because, as I've mentioned before, when you came on the panel, no matter what happens this season and beyond, until someone else makes a run at your record, you will forever have a spot at the top at that gym at Concordia Academy. So, how gratifying is it that you can be that kind of trailblazer?
yeah, I think, I mean, I'm proud of myself for being able to do that, and I know hopefully I'll be able to do a lot more in the future. But I mean, it definitely feels good to be that person to pave a way for others and um, to be able to, look back and say, I did this, I was able to do this for myself and for my community. So I think it's a great milestone in what I've done so far.
And as you were making your way through school and basketball, how did you adapt in an environment where you might be the only person of color or just one of few people? How did you approach that situation?
I mean, I wouldn't say I really adapted very much. I mean, you try to stay like true to yourself and who you are. I think, like I said, like my family, just having them to go back to like every day and be like, okay, this is like where my roots are. Like this is where I'm from. This is who I am. So that really helps, when you're in an environment where you're different than everybody every day. So.
And as you were developing as a basketball player, at what point in time do you believe you flipped the proverbial switch where you got to a point and said, I could go somewhere or I could do some things with this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I mean, that was kind of at the very beginning for me. Like when I put my mind to something, I just like I have very high aspirations in anything I do. So like even from, when I was like 7 and like, just going out to like play in the front yard, like, oh, like I want to make something out of this. And I think especially that kind of like switch was flipped in like 6th grade, I'd say. I started getting um, really good at like the end of my 6th grade traveling basketball season. So, and then the next year I went to Concordia to play JV as a 7th grader. So that's like kind of when that I guess switch was flipped for me, and I was like, okay, like I'll really be able to like make something out of this one day. So
And what led you to Concordia Academy?
that's where my two older brothers went. So it was kind of like, like of course they went there, like I'm gonna end up going there. So like, it's a Christian school. My family's Christian, so that was just always kind of the place. Like I always knew I was gonna go there. So.
And what would you make of your experience? You mentioned playing JV in 7th grade,
Mhm.
and you're doing this at a school where there wasn't a lot of history. They had never made a state tournament until this past season.
Mhm.
And you said you wanted to follow your brothers, so I'm guessing you weren't thinking too much about their basketball pedigree. But what has that journey been like where you started on JV and you have helped build this program up and put them on the map in basketball? They have a strong football and volleyball program, and now what you have accomplished is going to put girls basketball in that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, ever since I got there and, in 7th grade, like that was always one of my goals. Like, we've never been to a state tournament before. Like, I want to be the one to help us get there and, like put Concordia on the map kind of. So, um, I mean, and I had great teammates around me, people who I've played with since like 5th grade, um, I had good chemistry with, and I knew we could build something at CA and kind of, like I said, put us on the map, because a lot of people don't know about Concordia Academy unless you know a lot about volleyball. So definitely wanted to kind of branch that out a little bit more into, girls basketball and make a name for ourselves.
What are some of the difficulties and some of the joys that come with that, considering that you could have gone to, well, Minnehaha Academy? They were the perennial that you dethroned this past spring, or De La Salle, they had been a power in 3A, or Hopkins in 4A, but you stayed the course at Concordia Academy, and as you alluded to, helped put them on the map. So what are the hardest parts about that, and what is the most joyous thing about taking a program that didn't have much of a history, that didn't get talked about, to where you brought that team last year?
Yeah, I think, um, I mean, the most challenging part, like kind of what I touched on before, is just being the one to create that path and being the trailblazer. Like that's always hardest for I think the first person to do it. Um, I mean, I'm really proud that we did, and I think the most joyous part is just that I was um, able to set that goal for myself and for my team too, and we all accomplished it together. And I mean, that team that we had last year, like that was such a fun team to play with, and I'm glad I was able to accomplish it with that group of girls. It was really special. So, definitely the most joyous part was just being able to set that goal and be like, yeah, like I did it, we did it. So.
So you started at the JV level as a seventh grader. Do you remember when you first got to play on varsity?
Yeah, so my 8th grade year um, was my first time playing varsity, and I came in as a starter. So I was starting in 8th grade. You know, I still remember that game so vividly. We were playing Fridley at home, and we won by I think 4 points. So, I mean, definitely nerve-wracking for an 8th grader to come in having no varsity experience, but it's something that I'll remember for a really long time.
And I think it's safe to assume it was only the first of many memories that will stay with you no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Now, as you made your way through the sport of basketball, who are the role models you looked up to? You mentioned your brothers. Was there anyone else in the basketball community? And this can be anyone: NBA, WNBA, family members, or anyone I haven't thought of. Who are the players or people, the personalities that inspired you to go as hard as you do?
Yeah, I think at first, like when I first got to Concordia, in 8th grade, I played with a senior. Her name is Annika Newman, and she's at the Masters College in California. She was someone I really looked up to a lot, and she's like I think third on the all-time leading scorer list. So I mean, she was kind of that person that like, yeah, I want to be like her one day and even better than her one day. So she was a big role model to me, just like in my own community. Um, as for like professional athletes, I mean, always a big fan of the Lynx growing up. So I'd say, Maya Moore, Simone Augustus, Lindsay Whalen, like those were the people that like every girl was looking up to. So
It helps when you win four titles in that span too, and
right.
uh, and then going off of that, you mentioned Maya Moore. I have to imagine a role model not just as a player, but what she has been able to accomplish in
Yeah.
terms of civil rights. As a former player put it, one of the biggest flexes ever, where she helped Jonathan Irons get his sentence revocated, so got him out of prison and ends up marrying him. And
Yeah.
it's just like, it's one of those things where if you brought that in a movie, people would scoff, but this is happening in real life, and I just remember people
Yeah.
were so ecstatic about it. What is it about those four players, though? And whether it's on the court, away from it, so athleticism, civil rights, however you want to phrase it. What was it about those four players you spoke of that struck a chord with you?
I think just seeing their work ethic and their attitude, especially with like Annika, like I saw her like all the time in the summers, just like constantly shooting in the gym. Um, and her character really stuck out to me too. You know, like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And very humble. Like you wouldn't know her accomplishments just by like having a conversation with her. Like she's very humble and you know, a great role model. So, I mean, I definitely wanted to like exemplify that like growing up and being able to be that for someone else too. So,
And what about the Lynx players?
I
What
mean,
did you
all
enjoy? Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I mean also like their work ethic too and just their competitive drive. I mean, winning 4 titles is, you know, it's amazing. And to have that, you know, seeing that in your own city, it makes you wanna, you know, work towards that and like part of, you know, me wanting to like be able to go to that state tournament, like um, you know, just having that shot at a title and being able to compete for that, you know, it's something that you strive to do as an athlete. So I think having them as a role model was, you know, really big for not only me, but a lot of people who have grown up here.
Now, if I remember, I think I first heard of you as a freshman, even though I hadn't covered Concordia Academy yet, but that was also the year where Matt Pryor and now his assistant, who's now your head coach, Tiffany Stubbs, that's when that crew came in, young but highly knowledgeable about the game as we've seen.
Mhm.
And that's what I don't say what started it. So it's not like Concordia was an afterthought. You got to the section final for a few years, but that freshman and sophomore year where you were able to hang with Minnehaha Academy were some pivotal years, I think, in the building of your program. So as a freshman, even though you weren't named captain, the one mistake Matt Pryor had, what was it about him, his staff? How do you think that helped you make your way through coming off an eighth grade year where you played varsity for the first time into a leader at such a young age?
Yeah, they definitely helped me a ton. Just like their confidence in me, I think was the biggest thing. Um, you know, like I knew I was a good player and I had a lot of potential, but just having like those extra voices in my ear being like, "Hey, like you know you're good. Like you got this," you know. Just having that support and someone like prior to push me every day in practice and try to get the most out of me was really big for my development in the years to come. So
And how did that build your confidence where it took you a little while to get to that state tournament, to get that section title, but you weren't that far off. I think that section meeting you had with Minnehaha as a freshman came down to the last few points. And, Matt and one of his mentors, Josh Thorough, they've joked about that game as who got the edge there. And then as a sophomore, similar situation, you were right there. As frustrating as it may have been to come up short against your section rival of Minnehaha, how do you think that built your confidence as a player with your talents and your capabilities and the potential with what you could do?
yeah, I think just like you said, like just seeing that we were like right there every time, like we just had to get over the
Russ is
hump. And
open
I
for
think
three.
um,
Another miss.
Coach Tiff
Ball is
has
tipped.
done a great job
Tensaie
with this
launches.
team of
Bullseye.
building not only my confidence, but everybody
Robin Sale
else's
Cooper, the
confidence
defending
on the
3A
team.
champions, come up
And
hard.
just
Number
the
6
fact that we all
in the
believed in
3A
each other and
rankings.
was like, yeah, like we're gonna do this.
Liam
Like we're
Curtis, the
right there.
junior,
It's gonna happen.
second in the state in
Um,
three-point
I
field
think that was the
goals.
biggest thing for us is just realizing that we were
Tensaie looking
a
soft.
lot closer than sometimes we
All
felt like
right.
we might have been.
How often
What do you
has
recall
Tensaie
after your
had the
freshman year
16
when
footer?
Matt, got the
How
offer to
often we have a
coach
home
at
game?
his alma mater, Minnehaha Academy, and in that process, Tiffany getting promoted to the head coaching position. How did you respond, or how did you take that news? And what do you think that did as far as motivation? And I don't mean that to suggest that there's any animosity. Of course, Matt called the Concordia game with me, and he's still highly supportive of you and all the players he once coached. But when you found out he was going to head over, and then Tiffany was going to move to the head coaching position, how do you think that change helped your trajectory, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, I still remember that day very vividly. I think everybody on my team does. It was very like sad to see him go. Like we all loved Coach Pryor, and he was a great mentor to us, and he taught us a lot. So we were sad to see him go. But I think Tiff was great for our program, great for our team. She's shaped us in a lot of ways and has also become a very big mentor to all of us. So, I mean, we're very grateful that we got Tiff as, our next coach coming in there. And she's definitely shaped me a lot as a player, has taught me a lot, both on and off the court, too. Just like having a lot of conversations about, just life and faith. I think that's really developed me a lot as a person and a player. So I'm very thankful that she ended up being our coach. And then,
And those last 2 years where you had some solid seasons, plus 500 records, you were competitive in the Tri Metro and now Skyline.
mhm.
And both times, Minnehaha Academy was your roadblock. What would you make of those first couple of seasons in that scenario? And how frustrating was it to have your season come to an end? And you knew the scores indicated, and I'm sure you knew just as much, whether it was Matt or Tiffany, you knew it wasn't a matter of talent discrepancy. You were right there.
Mhm.
So how difficult is that where you come up against that roadblock in those first couple of years, and how do you think that motivated you to continue developing as a player?
Yeah, it was very, very frustrating those first 2 years. I mean, I think it was necessary though. And I think we needed those losses to help us, learn and become better as individuals and as a team. Um, just to like have that experience of, the loss and what it's like, to experience that and just like going on the other side and like finally winning. I think it makes it that much more satisfying. Um, but yeah, I think it was very frustrating at the time, but I think it was completely worth it, and it was definitely necessary for us to learn, um, you know, learn how to win. So
And along the way, in spite of those obstacles, you were making your way up that scoring list at a rapid pace. Not many can break it as a junior. How do you think you've developed into such a potent scorer? And when did it hit you that you had an opportunity to make history and add to it, not just pass the all-time record? I think Janet Cobb held that mark. So not just an opportunity to pass that record, but maybe you could become the first 2,000 point scorer, depending on what happens this season.
yeah.
When did it hit you that you were at the center of history at Concordia Academy?
Um, Honestly, I think probably in eighth grade, when I started starting. I mean, like, I know usually it happens like after 3 years of varsity. If like you're a pretty high scorer, you get like 1,000 points. So I think, um, especially like once I hit that my sophomore year, I was like, yeah, I can really do this. Um, and it definitely came up pretty quick. I mean, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm thankful for to hopefully have the opportunity to keep building on that this year and hopefully reach 2000. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely in 8th grade, I knew I had the opportunity to get there one day, but I think sophomore year is really when that like solidified and was like, yeah, like I can really do this.
Do you recall when you knew that you broke the record? Because it did happen as a junior. I'm not exactly sure which game because I have a good rapport with your AD, and they were still tabulating the numbers, but it did happen in your junior year. And do you recall the moment when you knew you had passed the all-time scoring record?
Yeah, so we were playing Matamidi, and I think I needed like 19 points to break it. And it was funny because like we had a game the next day against Cristo Rey, and I was like, okay, like I kind of want to get it at home because like Matamidi was an away game and the next game was at home, and I was like, okay, well, like obviously we have to win this game, so like I mean, hopefully I don't have to score that many points and we can win, and then I can get it at home. But I actually ended up having like maybe 17 or 18 points at the half, and I was like, okay, like you know, like it's probably gonna happen at this point. So I was really excited though when it did happen, and that was a great game for the team too. Like that was probably one of our best games of the season. So to be able to do it, having such a great game with the team was even more added even more excitement to it. So yeah, that was a really great night for me.
What I find most amusing about that story is you said you needed 19 points to break the record. You
Hmm.
were trying to time it so you could break it at home, and you end up, I think, scoring a career high. I think you had 40 points, one of two 40-point games, if I remember. So you needed 19, you get 40 against Matabidai. So I'm thinking, no, you just wanted to get out of the way early. But how surreal is that where you needed 19, you're like, okay, let's see if we can get a win here and I can lay back, get it at home. And then you end up dropping 40.
Yeah. um, I think that was actually I think I had 34 that game. 40
Or
was a different
34.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Still, I
I'm
mean,
going to look it up right now. Just
okay.
I could research it, but take us through that situation though, as I'm going to confirm the numbers here, where you needed 19, and Matabidai, they were a strong team a year ago,
Yeah.
uh, but you end up passing it, and it's not even close. So like, I just find it amusing that you had one of the best games of your season in terms of scoring against the team where you were trying to take it easy.
Yeah. Um, I mean, like you can't really plan that out in your head, you know? Like, I mean, definitely would have loved to have it at home, but like, regardless, that's a great milestone. And like, I'm happy wherever it's at. But yeah, I think it's kind of ironic how that happened. And all my teammates knew like, oh yeah, like try to get at home, this and that. But it was like, okay, like by halftime we were like, all right, like it's over with. So I mean, it was definitely fun though. I mean, like I said, that was one of the best games we had that entire season. So I mean, I was thankful to have it in that game for sure.
And I can't confirm Yvonne's memory is better than mine. She did have 34 points against Montevideo. The 40-point games that I was thinking of actually happened on back-to-back games, St. Agnes and Maranatha. So
Hmm.
uh, this kid can score if you didn't pick it up by now. But I think a signature part of your game on that note is your three-point shooting. Matamidi in that one, you had 7 3-pointers. St. Agnes, one of your 40-point games, you had 10. You finished with 118 triples on the season. It's not too often that players get to 100 3-pointers in a high school season. What makes you such a sharpshooter from the perimeter?
Steps into a three, pure.
Um, I
And if
think
she gets
that
one
goes
from
back to
3-point,
even like when I was 7 years old and I asked Roby
Tensaie with
to,
a side fade, look
help
out,
coach me up. And
pure.
for
That's just
like
too easy.
2 years straight. Like from
She can
time I was
create
like
offense
7
outside of
till
backdoor
9, all I
cuts.
did was shoot form shots
It
around
starts
the
to be a
basket.
great
Like I
score.
didn't
Nice
even
shot.
like attempt
And there's
like one
someone
from
who can
even like
create
the free throw
offense.
line or anything like
And
that. And it was like
that's
very
only going to open the door for
intentional
Tensaie.
about,
There she is.
getting my form
Bullseye.
perfect.
Well, and that's
So I
why
think
she's
that's
leading the state
definitely
in
where it
threes right
started,
there.
and
Not
then
only is
like
she a
just
great
repetition from there on out. Definitely thankful for like that gift that God has blessed me with. You know, it's it's kind of surreal looking back and being like, man, like I hated him for those 2 years, making me only shoot form shots, but it paid off in the end. So
Well, especially with where the game is right now, with pace and space, perimeter shooting, 3 pointers, such an integral part of a successful team. So, has Roby talked any smack to you about that? Where you couldn't stand him for a couple of years, you were annoyed that he was making you work on your form, strictly your form shots, and now we've seen
yeah.
drop 40 a couple of times, drop 34 against Matabidai. So does he talk smack? What's that dynamic like where all those years, all that time on form shots has paid off for you?
Yeah, he definitely reminds me every now and then. It's like, hey, you're happy now, right? So, yeah, I mean, a little bit of back and forth every now and then.
How important and how exciting, how cool is it though for you where, yes, you might talk smack about all those years working on form shots, but to have a big brother lend a hand and help you become the prodigy, become the standout athlete. You put in the work to get there, but how cool was it to have a big brother help you along that journey?
Yeah, it definitely helped a lot for my development, especially at a young age, and being able to have that opportunity to even come in as like a seventh and eighth grader and play at the high school level. I mean, that definitely prepared me a lot for it, and I'm very thankful for you know um, him being in my life and being able to share basketball with me as a whole. So
And over time, I think this helped or played into Concordia's rise to that first section title in school history. But I noticed when I first watched you play, Concordia has a lot of crossover athletes. So I want to preface it
mhm.
with that because there's no lack of athleticism. You and I have talked about what they've done in volleyball and their football program also solid. Boys basketball, had a chance to go to state. We'll never know, but they're competitive too.
Mhm.
But I noticed the first time I saw your team in that section rivalry series with Minnehaha, I noticed it looked like you were a step above everyone else. But over time, those crossover athletes, the others who have played alongside you, Sydney Pelzer, Grace Landvik, come to mind there. They've upped their game too. And, we saw that when you beat Mare Lutheran. We saw that when you won, I think, 16 games in a row this past year.
Yeah.
So how do you think the lot of your team, your classmates, your teammates, how have you all grown together?
Yeah, so actually with Grace and Sydney Pelzer, I've played with them for like most of my life. I played with Grace since fourth grade. We were on like the first team I ever played for. We were on that team together. And I played with her up until seventh grade. And then she played for the C team and I played for JV. And then we met back up on the varsity in eighth grade. So that chemistry has just always been there. We've been playing together forever. And then also Sydney Pelzer, I played with her in fifth grade, and then we met back up in eighth grade. So yeah, just a long history with especially those two. They've grown a lot, especially this past year. They stepped up in so many ways, and like you said, that I think 15 or 16 game winning streak. They showed up and they showed out for sure. And I'm really proud of the steps they've taken, and I can't wait to play the senior year with them and see even how much better they've gotten over the past year.
And on that subject, Another one of those you can't make this up moments. The road to get to state for you was an unusual one. You started the season 1-8, if I remember correctly. You lost 8 of your first
Mhm.
9 games, and then you win 15 in a row, and I think 16 out of the last 17. You came up short against Blake, but Addie Mack
Yeah.
is no as no joke, and I'm curious to see how that rivalry is going to unfold now that she's playing for Minnehaha. But a 1-8 start, you win 16 of your last 17. How weird was it to have such a crazy start where you came off a year where you made it to the section final and almost beat Minnehaha again, and then you start the next season, your junior year, with a lot of close defeats, St. Anthony or Orono. You were in it with Minnehaha Academy, and then you flip the switch and just go on this massive winning streak. What do you recall from that junior season?
Yeah, the beginning was definitely very frustrating at first, and I think it could have been really easy for us to all get really discouraged with that start. You never want to lose that many games, especially at the beginning of the season. Um, but I think even though it was very frustrating at the time, I think we were able to learn from every loss. And ultimately, there was just like this piece about how the rest of the season was going to go. And I think there was never a doubt in my mind that we were going to get back to where we were the year before and that we were going to win that section final. Um, so definitely, definitely great lessons learned from that, first portion of the season, and won't be anything I'll forget anytime soon. Um, but I think that makes the story that much sweeter that we were 1-8 and we came back and ended up going to state that year. So definitely makes for a great story.
And I remember, as I'm following scores as I usually do, because you can't just tune into games on ESPN like you can at the college level. But I'm seeing some of the scores that were coming in, and I knew like Fridley had some pieces, or they were kind of building their way up. St. Anthony, they're another one of those teams that can make some surprises. Minnehaha, of course, they're the perennial. Minneapolis South has the Hill Sisters. But I remember when I looked at that 1-8 start, and I'm going, this is not what I was expecting out of Concordia. And then to
Yeah.
turn around, you started playing a lot of skylight teams, but that winning streak included Mare Lutheran, a top team in Class A, Matamidi, a team that was on the rise again in 3A. What was the most frustrating part about that 1-8 start, and what was the most gratifying part about turning that around into a 15-game winning streak?
I think the most frustrating part was that like so many of those games were like so close and came down like to the last few minutes and came down to the wire, and it was like we were right there every time, but we just like couldn't pull through at the end. So that was definitely very frustrating, just knowing that we could have won those games if it was just for a little 1 minute or 2 minute stretch. But I think the most gratifying part, definitely, that in the end we ended up meeting a goal that we've all dreamt of for years, and we were able to make school history, um, just turning like probably the worst start we could have had into the best season we've ever had. Was definitely all worth it in the end.
And as we're leading up to that section final with Minnehaha, what do you think? Matt Pryor's move to that school, Tiffany taking over. Those two are friends, and now they're going against each other for the right to play in state every year now. What do you think that added to the rivalry? Because you knew Minnehaha, they were a tough team, and the team everybody wanted to dethrone when they were a power and still are in Class 2A. But knowing that whenever you have to play Minnehaha, you have your current coach and you have to go against your former coach. And I know it's a friendly
Mhm.
rivalry, but how intense or how surreal is that, knowing like the last couple of years you've had to play against one of your former coaches, former mentors for the right to earn a spot in the state tournament field?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes it more competitive. Like, you both know each other, your tendencies, this and that. So I think it makes it definitely more fun too, just like knowing that and creating a strategy for how to win. And um, I mean, definitely more competitive, but like, you said before, like there's no animosity at all. Like it's all um, and good fun. And we're just trying to do the best we can to accomplish our goals. So at the end of the day, very competitive, but it's all love. So
I think the most intense part of that rivalry is both coaches, Matt and Tiffany, coming up to me perhaps and asking for game film on certain games. So that's about as far as it goes.
hmm
But that's more of an amusing anecdote than a tense one. But this year, you finally beat Minnehaha. You finally got past that roadblock. What do you recall from that section final in March where you had to go up against Minnehaha Academy again? You're aware of all their history. They were the defending state champions. They knocked you off in the regular season. Second time around, different story. What do you recall from that game, and how exciting, how relieving was it that you finally were able to knock them off and play your way into the state tournament?
yeah, I think coming into that game, it was a lot like it was a much different feel than the 2 years before. Like it was very calm, I guess, and it was kind of like this piece that like yeah, I mean, I think this is the year, third time's the charm. So yeah, I mean, I think the whole team felt it too, and we knew like history was going to be made that night. And just after the game, it was just that that relief that like man, we finally did it. We got this far from the worst start, like I said before. um and yeah, it was just you can't really hope for a better outcome than what happened that season. So hopefully this year we'll be able to do that again and go farther in the state tournament if there is one. So fingers crossed.
Do you remember how loud you screamed or how high you jumped when the clock hit zero and it was official?
What's funny is like I was just so tired, like I couldn't even react. Like I was just like, man, like just like sitting there. So
So that section final, clock hit zero. I'm guessing you just exhaled then because
yeah,
you were so tired. You were probably ready to go to sleep, I bet.
yeah, definitely.
uh, Even though you weren't able to pick up a win in that state tournament, do you remember just how excited the school was, or just that feeling of getting the chance to play at Williams and getting a chance to put Concordia on the map, as we talked about earlier? Just what was the mood like in the lead up, getting that chance to play and accomplishing that goal, that dream of yours of putting Concordia Academy girls basketball in the spotlight?
Yeah, it was definitely a dream come true. Just being able to play in the barn and experience that state atmosphere. It was just something different than I've ever experienced before. So I'm really grateful to have had that opportunity, to be there with my teammates and coaches and experience that all together. Um, yeah, definitely something I'll never forget. Yeah, just that state atmosphere is a lot different. So I'm glad I was able to experience it and hopefully we'll be able to again.
And as you touched on, you're hoping to play. I think just about everyone is hoping they'll be able to play this winter. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's gotten to a point where I'm just going along for the ride as we continue to ride out this pandemic.
hmm
But on top of that, this was quite a year with the pandemic, with a lot of conversations about civil rights, racial equality. I know you came on to share your feelings about that. You went to a few of the protests in the Twin Cities area. And as I imagine you witnessed and you got to see, you weren't the only athlete, high school athletes, college athletes, so even Carl Anthony Towns of the Minnesota Timberwolves, brought, he came along. Steven Jackson, I think, paid a visit up here. So, this has been a monumental year in terms of athletes and advocacy. How do you think you've grown amidst all of the challenges where you don't know what tomorrow's going to look like? You don't know what the season's going to look like. If we're able to have one, there's a schedule put together, but who knows what's going to happen once we get to December. And then you have to deal with all of these circumstances that can be trying for someone like yourself or any athlete or person of color. How do you think the events of this year have helped you grow as an athlete and as a citizen?
Yeah, I think I mean, this year is the year of uncertainty. So definitely it has made me you know, think more about just life in general and, forced me to form my own opinions and, my own thoughts and ultimately I think just like put more trust and more faith in God because I mean, that's the center of my life. So I think this year's definitely helped me grow in that a lot just with all the uncertainty going on and um yeah, I mean, I think for anyone it just forces you to kind of come out of your comfort zone and experience things that are difficult and that you otherwise may not have thought you had to experience before. So I think ultimately it's going to be a good lesson learned um, just throughout the rest of this year and what's to come in the future. It's going to like help build and prepare for other difficulties that are going to come in life because that's inevitable. So I think it's been a very challenging year, but a very necessary year of growth. So,
And I'm not sure what's going to happen with the high school teams as we saw the NBA and WNBA openly embraced change with the Black Lives Matter insignias on their courts, the WNBA
mhm.
players wearing Breonna Taylor's name on their jerseys, the NBA players having causes on the back of their jerseys alongside their names. How do you think that has shaped you in terms of what you can do as a high school athlete? I don't know if we'll have names on the back of your jerseys, but now that you've seen some of your role models take up these causes, how do you think that's going to strengthen your resolve as you suit up one more time in the green and white at Concordia Academy?
Yeah, I think, like I said before, just being able to like form my own opinions and thoughts and also being able to share them, whether that's a conversation brought to me or me bringing a conversation to someone else, or just, putting it out, on my platforms and being able to, share what I care about and what's important in life. So, yeah, I think that definitely just gives um, courage to be able to be bold in that and be unapologetic about things that need to change and change for the better.
And as you stated, you're looking to play Division One, hoping the junior college route uh, pans out. But what are you most excited about with this senior season, knowing that you will get a chance to play beyond the high school days? So you will have an opportunity to play college basketball. Who knows where that will take you? How does that shape your perspective going into your last year at Concordia?
Well, it's good to, know I have a plan for what's to come in the future. So, I'm really just trying to enjoy and make the most of this senior season, especially because I don't know how much of it is guaranteed. So just to be able to have that last go around with this senior class, I think this is a really special class and like I said, I've been playing with Grace and Sydney Pelzer for a very long time, and excited to, continue that this year with them and hopefully get another run at state. It's always been one of my dreams to play um, for a state championship too. So, God willing that happens, like that would be really huge. And I mean, I would love nothing more than to do it with this group. So,
Well, and if there's that chance, that 2A field is going to be pretty tough with Sauk Center, Minnehaha, you guys, Rochester Lord, Providence Academy, I know, has built their way up. So that there's a lot of
mhm.
competitive teams in that class. Uh, what do you see for yourself as far as your future, whether it's in basketball or in the career world, as you get ready to make that transition to the next level of your life, where do you see yourself?
So I mean, like I said before, I mean, in the future I'd hope to play D1, and then after that, if there's a professional opportunity for me that's presented to me, I would love to be able to play professionally, whether that's overseas or anywhere really. So, but I will be studying sports psychology in college. So I'm not exactly sure what I'd like to do with that after I'm done playing basketball, but definitely that field interests me a lot. So we'll see where that takes me.
And something I wanted to follow up on that doesn't get a whole lot of talk, at least when we discuss your strengths, is how you don't like chocolate and peanut butter. You may be the first person I know that doesn't like either of those things. So, what do you have against chocolate and peanut butter?
I mean, I don't know really. It's just I don't know. Just I mean, doesn't taste good to me. I mean, I like more sweet things like, Skittles or Starburst, stuff like that.
Skittles and Starburst, and I think I joked if you do go pro, that Reese's would probably have no luck making an endorsement deal with you. What are some foods that you do like? I guess chocolate and peanut butter are out, but what are some foods that are on your
Yeah.
list?
Like actual food or like candy?
Well, actual food, candy. You know what? You take this where you want to go
The
with
whole
it.
nine.
Yeah. I don't put limits on the answers to my questions. There is no wrong answer.
I think the best thing is probably my mom's lasagna. Yeah, I'm a big pasta person. I love like fettuccine alfredo. Like it's all good. So it's probably my favorites.
I'm guessing you probably wouldn't mix your Skittles or Starburst with it, though.
No, probably not. We'll leave that separate.
Okay, well, what is your favorite flavor of Skittles and Starburst?
I like the yellow, like the lemon flavors. Yeah.
I used to be into Starburst, and now I kind of stay away from it as I've gotten older, and then I had to get a crown in. But I'm a big M&M's guy. Although I used to hate M&M's and was more into Skittles, and then it kind of went the other way around. Uh, and then with Skittles, do you have a go-to like flavor pack?
Original probably.
The
Sometimes
orig-
we'll mix it up and go tropical, but usually original.
And what are some other unusual things, or maybe not unusual, but things that we wouldn't necessarily know about you that are fun to talk about?
Um, I'm a big fan of the show The Office. I've watched it like 6 or 7 times through, and I'm like in season 5 right now. So like working on my seventh or eighth time through right now. So yeah, big The Office fan.
So you're probably one of those people responsible for all those office memes that show up on my Facebook and Twitter feeds, aren't you?
Yeah, guilty.
Have you dropped any lines like during a game or practice? As I know that's a big show. My brother's really into it. My sister watched it. So do you drop any references and to see if your teammates or your coaches can pick up on it?
Yeah, sometimes with my friends at school and they pick up on it. So yeah.
And earlier we talked about your status as a trailblazer, making your way, getting a chance to play college basketball, and making history at Concordia Academy in a sport that doesn't always get a lot of representation. Of course, basketball has a huge participation rate with the Black community, but it's not always associated with Eastern African communities like yours. And I know a few who have taken up basketball, and one actually was part of a traveling team to showcase the strength of Somalians in basketball. Here you are doing the same thing for people with Ethiopian lineage. But in any event, you get to be an element or a data point in this conversation about how anyone can play basketball. So, how do you think your role, your growth, what you've accomplished, what do you hope that inspires or for others? How do you hope your contributions will inspire others who share your background to either pursue the sport of basketball or pursue whatever else they would like to do?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely more than anything, just for people to know that anything is possible and it doesn't matter like who you are or where you come from. If you have a goal and you set your mind to it, like it can happen for you, even if it's not like traditionally what someone would expect of you. So just to be like ambitious and go after what you want, um, you know, no matter whether it's unconventional or not.
And on that note, what advice would you give to anyone who has those kinds of dreams? Maybe they're not sure if they can take that path or not. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cliche, but like never give up. I mean, there are definitely like there were a lot of times where, I kind of doubted myself or wondered if, I could really accomplish my dreams, but I think, if you have a never give up mentality, like it'll happen for you eventually. Um and just like stay patient and keep trusting that it'll happen and things will work out in your favor. Um, so just work hard every day at what you want to do and believe in it. Like believe in it 100% and have people around you who are going to support you.
Now, is that what you would tell a future Concordia Academy athlete if one of their goals is to break your scoring record?
Absolutely. Go for it.
And we tease, of course, but it's like with records, I think the attitude that I get from most players, it sounds like you're in that camp, is that, hey, if someone else breaks it, it's like, well, I proved that I could do it, so why can't someone else? But
Right.
it's been a lot of fun, though. I remember first hearing about you, I think, as a freshman, then getting to see you play a few times these last few years. It's like I can understand why you were getting a lot of attention on the girls' basketball publications.
Jenna O'Brien.
Just what would you like to leave us with as
Seventh
we
grader
get close to wrapping up this
and going up.
podcast?
There's Ivane Tensaie, lines up the three, and it's good.
I mean, well, thank you for having me again. And just like I
Nikki
said, I
unable to
mean,
knock down a three of her own.
anybody
Meekins
listening,
in
like just like never
transition.
give up on
Tensaie
your
with a
dreams,
dime.
and
Tensaie can run.
hopefully one
Swings
day
around, now
I'll
fires the three.
keep
Off
making
the
it
dribble, no good.
towards mine.
Rebound Sicklick.
And
Tensaie
you
again.
know,
Bullseye.
it's a long journey, and just trust in the
And
process.
Blake hanging around.
Trusting God, and
Tensaie for
things will
three.
work out for you.
Bullseye.
So yeah, I'm really
It's
happy
hard
to
to
be able to have said I've accomplished a lot at Concordia, and hopefully that I'll continue a lot more in the future as well. So yeah.
Now, before we go, as I'm looking this up, since you already have one record with the career scoring mark at Concordia Academy, you had over 100 3-pointers last year. Well, it might be tough because you only have 18 games, but could you see yourself making a run at any 3-point records like the season marks 128. So I know, hey, you weren't that far off last year.
Yeah. It definitely would be harder to do with less games this year, but I mean, I guess anything's possible, right? So never
Yeah.
say never.
Just got to step up that efficiency, or just go all Steph Curry all season.
Right.
Just only shoot 3-pointers.
Right.
Well, Ivane, this was great to learn a lot more about you, and hopefully you can accomplish those dreams of a professional basketball player. Of course, you've got to get through college first, and if you want to pursue sports psychology or anything else, I have a feeling you're going to go after it just as hard as when you played basketball. And I know I got your schedule, so I'm hoping I can make it to a few games. Again, we're all just writing this out and trying to stay safe. But I'm glad you came on and took some time to share all these things about you. I can only imagine there's someone out there. You said you didn't have a lot of folks to look up to outside of your family, but I have to imagine over the years, whether it's in Ethiopia or here, Twin Cities, of course, has a large immigrant population, especially Minneapolis, St. Paul. I have to imagine at least one of them has watched you and your accomplishments and is telling themselves, I can be just like her. So I think you're going to leave quite the mark here in the Twin Cities and in college when you start at NDSCS.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, Ivane Tensaie of Concordia Academy girls basketball, you can see her on the newly painted floor this winter. The season will start in December. Due to the pandemic, and they'll play 18 games. Hopefully we can get all of them in, but any game is a chance for Ivane to add to that scoring record, maybe get to 2,000. But she's already blazed a trail at Concordia Academy, and I can't wait to see what she does as a senior. I can't wait to see what everyone does. Of course, I'm a fan of everybody. That's what makes it hard for me. But thanks again, Ivane, and I'll wish you luck as you go after some more of those records.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And if you want to be a guest on a future episode of Mic'd Up Sports, just hit us up on social media at the Mike Peden on Twitter or Instagram. All you need is a story, and we'd be happy to share it. Until next time, I'm Mike Peden. Thanks for watching.